All right, let's get back to our discussion. And we're recording this session, uh, just a heads up. So let's step in. This is a discussion on bridging the gap between the community and contributing organizations. And it's going to be led by Jeremy and Ildiko, you folks here.
Sounds like Jeremy ran out of battery or something, so it'll be a minute.
Okay.
Are you here, Ildiko?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
And to clarify, it's not Jeremy, it's his headset. Jeremy
Ah.
did not run out of battery. Sorry, just joking. Clark, did he imply how much time he needs, or should we just go in and...
I think we can go ahead and start with some of the background here, and then Jeremy, when he's able to reconnect, can start
Okay.
filling in.
All right. I don't know if we want to share the Etherpad or if we already have it. I just don't have it open.
Oh, yeah, I can go ahead. So,
Oh, there it is. No,
guess-
I'm good. I'm switching over from Zoom to Meetpad. Sorry, my brain needed a moment. So the background to the whole story is kind of dates back to a request from the openstack-tc in terms of how the Open Infra Foundation could help with further diversifying and growing the OpenStack community. What we were able to look into is talking to some member and ecosystem member companies who are organizations who are not yet active contributors to the community, or maybe they tried sporadically to contribute but with smaller or bigger successes. And we were collecting some feedback in terms of what their struggles were if someone was trying to contribute and was not able to, what were the obstacles that they faced, was that anything on the community side, or was it more related to their own situation. And this is where the bridging the gap between contributing organizations and the community originated from. And we have a series of Etherpads that Jeremy built that are talking a bit more about the feedback, things like, hey, it's not clear to, like, if I'm a person who's trying to contribute and I'm not successful over time, like feedback included the contributor not understanding what the priorities are in the particular project team when they were trying to contribute, which gave them a challenge in terms of landing their patch, especially if it was not a bug fix, but rather more of a feature related enhancement or a new feature overall. And also think we as we were looking into the feedback and reviews that people shared with us, we saw that looked like inefficiencies in terms of the review process, prioritization, and some bit more project management related things in terms of reviews being open from somewhere to 6 months up to, I don't know, 3-4 years, and still somewhat active. So we started to look into, and Jeremy has a great compilation of where the challenges might lie and what improvements could be made for the whole review process and task management to be more efficient. Because what we have learned over the course of talking to established contributors from the OpenStack community, as well as having forum sessions at the Open Infra Summit, as well as Open Infra Days North America that just concluded last week. And what we learned from conversations and feedback and discussions is that many of the things that are either new contributors or casual contributors are experiencing, those challenges are something that even established contributors are facing themselves. So this effort kind of transitioned into how we could, as a community, improve processes and making things more efficient. So contributing and reviewing becomes a better and more sustainable experience for everybody. And things that we came up with included more clear communication on reviews, more clear indication of priorities for the particular project team where someone is trying to contribute. One of the forum sessions, it turned out that, for example, the Nova team has an Etherpad where they are tracking priorities, but that Etherpad is not very visible. If someone is not actively participating in the team, they might not know about it. So making sure that if a process exists, then it is documented and is discoverable for people who might be newer to the community or not contributing frequently enough to be aware of a particular process that is being implemented and used by a project team within OpenStack. And we are bringing this session here as well to see if the challenges and solutions are resonating with the TC, as well as to see what action items we can have to make sure that whatever improvement is identified, we as a community take steps to implement them and make contributing a better experience for everybody. Clark, if there's anything I missed or you would like to
Um,
add, please jump in. I don't know if Jeremy made it back.
Oh yeah,
And
I heard most of your intro.
okay.
yeah, I would say that like fundamentally, a lot of these struggles seem to be based in communication and people not necessarily understanding implicit expectations or maybe even explicit expectations that could be interpreted in different ways. And so I think, yeah, fundamentally, if we can kind of figure out how to communicate with each other more effectively by being, you know, direct and explicit about like, hey, this is the thing that needs to happen to merge this code is X and Y, and then we will do it. You know, that sort of being communicating those expectations clearly and directly, I think would go a long way in making everyone kind of understand where any given change exists in time at a given point in time so that it can eventually get merged and make people happy.
So, so if I may, I was actually surprised. That's been now a couple of years. I won't exactly tell the exact number. That's been Nova PTL, but yet I barely count by maybe only one hand the number of times I've been directly pinged as the PTL like, look, I would like to contribute to X or Y, but I don't know. Or hey, I would like to contribute to OpenStack Nova. Can you please give me a hand? Those occurrences were very few, and I wonder, is it? I mean, the fun part of that is that like 6 months ago, someone say to me, "Oh, actually, you are like the Nova PTL." Was that really new? I said, "Oh, actually, no. That's been like maybe like 2 years or more." Oh shit, I gave the number. But yeah, the fact is the visibility. I mean, it appears to me that a project is known, but no, but not the people behind that project. I'm not particularly asking for recognition. That's not a matter of recognition. That I got that. That's not the problem. I'm more speaking about the visibility of the project, translating, if you prefer, some code into some humans that you can reach. If we were in a single company, all going at the coffee machine, for example, someone just joining the company would just go to the coffee machine or any team machine or any kind of group reunion and say, look, I'm stuck, or I don't know, can someone just like help me? Given the nature of our relationship, I mean, I don't know how much we can improve the visibility that there are actually people behind the projects. I'm not particularly saying that you should throw my name anytime someone is asking how to write a bug fix, but if that helps, I mean, I know everything of that is documented, right? If you go to either the wiki or the governance page, or that is documented. That is documented, but despite that, people are still surprised to see my face when it goes to that point. Anyway, I'm stopping now.
Just on that, before I call on you, I think John, the issue with talking about people is because we are a community, right? We want folks to step into a channel and ask a question rather than reach out through private messages or private mails. Go to the OpenStack discuss list, go to the projects channel or the OpenStack dev channel, and so on. So that's been the general recommendation in the community. Um, that's wanted to just add that, but let's take questions. Sorry, go ahead with John.
Hi. I think I was just going to quickly respond to what you're saying, Sylvain. I think it's easy. We're talking about OpenStack community norms rather than industry-wide norms, I guess, as well, in terms of like discovering all of those things. Let me shut up. I can't think of a good way of getting the words out of my head. I'll come back to it later. Maybe that was the main thing. It's just people are surprised by what is normal to us, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Plus one to what you're saying about the communication issues.
I'm surprised at what's normal to other people as well. like,
Yeah.
wow, your GitHub commit history is a total garbage dump of steaming pile of mess. And they're like, right. And yours isn't, and that's weird. So
Amy.
Yeah, I was listening to Sylvan, and some of what we used to do in Upstream Institute covered how to find people and so on and so forth. We don't have those anymore. I mean, you did the great workshop the other day. Didn't go into governance like we used to, but still you had limited time and so on and so forth. But as I'm listening, I'm going, what if we did on the website or through socials a contributor spotlight? Like go through all the PTLs, then go through the TC, and then go through Kata, and then go through Zool, and then get to the core reviewers and stuff. Or even in like the PTL spotlight, he goes, and these are my core reviewers. This is how you find them, so on and so forth, to maybe get some more visibility. Just a thought.
Makes sense. Sylvain, you're unmuted. Do you want to say something?
I mean, what? I mean, how to say that? There is that's two-step dance, I would say. If you really want to embark on that specific journey, you probably have to do one step, and I'm offering to do this second step. But yeah, surely there is a necessary level of understanding on how things are being done before you can actually do before you can actually like do that step. But I don't know. I don't know. It's a complicated problem. My main problem that I try to solve for the last years was to say, despite the Nova history, despite how big the project is large, and despite what you can hear, you can propose something if you basically try to do this and that, and we'll try to make sure that what you propose will be reviewed. That was just like the engagement that I was doing. There was no false promise about, yeah, for sure your code will be merged. This was just like, look, we have a large number of patches up, but if you follow that specific path, we'll know that you propose something and we'll try to review your patch. That was just the idea behind that. So I don't know. I don't know why it was so. Why we got a very little number of new contributors despite that. But one of the things indeed was that documentation wasn't really that present. Anyway, I'm stopping now.
Yeah, just a reminder for anyone who hasn't really been following this closely yet. The ideas, analysis, and so on that's been done up to this point, and categories of challenges we've come up with are represented in the Etherpads that we've been carrying forward from one discussion to the next. So either the read-only link up there in the background section to the Open Infra Days North America session from last week has them laid out. Also, the pad that I linked down in action items for tomorrow's working session has them enumerated as well. So, like, think about which of those situations you've experienced as a contributor. What ways, coping mechanisms do you find for continuing to be productive even in the face of those challenges, and how might that translate to something that we can document for people who maybe don't know that those are options available to them. Like I personally, as a longtime contributor to many projects, still experience a lot of my changes that are pushed for review just sort of sitting there unreviewed, and I have had to learn to not be afraid to occasionally nag people, remind them that I've got these open changes that they might be interested in, that might do something that is of benefit to the project, etc. But I don't know that a lot of newcomers either know that it's socially acceptable to do that, or know where to go about doing that, or know the circumstances under which they should consider doing that.
And we're also trying to look into how to make reminders easier. For instance, like if there's someone who's uploading a review who seems to be a new contributor, they may or may not have read all the contributing documentation and project team documentation and all those things. But if the documentation exists about this is how we do prioritization, this is how we do this is how we do that, even in the review, it's easy to point to some of the links that, hey, make sure to read these so that we can have an efficient process here. So we're really trying to look into how to make it easier to both unblock reviews and making sure that reviews don't stay open for years, because that is time that goes into that, both for the contributor who uploaded the review as well as the people who are reviewing that review. And the goal here is to making the contribution process a better experience for established contributors as well. And I do understand from personal experience that at one point it's just not great to keep reminding people to the same things. So if we can make any improvements to make those reminders easier, then that's, I think, already an improvement that is worthwhile to explore.
Also, it's probably worth repointing out. I put this up in the background section as well, but this whole effort started from a request from the openstack-tc some years back, that the foundation account managers not only try to recommend that member organizations contribute to OpenStack and other open infra projects, but also gather feedback when they would like to do so, but encounter challenges, what keeps them from contributing, et cetera. So like from a technical committee perspective, this is how we have figured out to try to summarize the feedback, the themes that we've been seeing so far. And I would, for what time we've got during this session, would love to kind of get some feel from the current TC. I know that many of you weren't on the TC when this whole process started, but like, what sorts of additional analysis are you interested in? What sorts of better ways could we go about trying to classify some of these challenges? What other ways would you like to be involved in this process? And certainly if you're available for the working session tomorrow, that is a good place to show up and volunteer your participation in the next steps.
Jeremy, can I add a couple of things there, tangential to what you're saying about anything else that we should be using, but you have given us some fodder already. So we could act on some of those things, right? Like for example, the code review anti-patterns that you shared, that's come up because you've seen in your feedback, in the feedback that you've elicited, that this happens in our community, that we're giving folks, we're going back and forth in code reviews, because as a community we're not able to align between our maintainers about things that we're enforcing, and we're probably nitpicking a lot and things like that as well. So I guess something educational across all project teams would help at this point, apart from the blog that you linked to us, but maybe we have to formalize this somewhere in the OpenStack documentation, call it out to each project team, have them review it. Every contributor that is a maintainer reviews that, and probably tries to avoid making those pitfalls during code reviews. That's one part.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, from that angle, a lot of the recommendations that we have come up with so far, if we can get those fleshed out a little with better text, those would be good opportunities for inclusion in documentation that the TC is already responsible for, like the contributor guide, the contributor organizations guide, the project teams guide, and also possibly things like cross-project goals for getting more project-specific, team-specific information, like the stuff that was mentioned about the Nova teams, prioritization stuff, integrated into project-specific contributing .rst or contributor documents that they maintain.
Just to be clear, Nova had done that before we started using it. We made sure it's in the contributor doc, and we also sent it out on the mailing list, and it's in IRC header. So we tried to communicate it as widely as possible. So when Savon has sent out, hey, we're going to do a review day, they've always linked to that Etherpad to make sure that it's very visible that that's what we're using to try and prioritize it.
Yep. So it serves as a good example for what some of the other teams could similarly be doing. And Gautam, you had some additional points, it sounded like.
Yes, one other thing I think that came up in the Open Infra Days discussion on the same topic, right? Folks were looking for a place to, um, you know, express their disagreements with the maintainers, and this somehow dissuaded them from contributing to OpenStack, specifically because they were either ignored, or they've had a chat with one or two maintainers and they didn't really they weren't able to convince each other about anything, so they wanted a way to escalate. Uh, the this is what I think I could summarize from what I heard over there.
Yeah.
Escalate to TC or
Yeah,
escalate?
Well,
we
not
actually didn't
in.
conclude on
Yeah,
where to go. Yeah.
in indirectly. So I'll include some of this in the write up from that session, but basically my thoughts on what the escalation path looks like today, that's already there and supplied by governance, but we don't really make it clear to contributors that this is the case. If you get a singular review and you're not really convinced of the feedback or whatever, maybe you think that it may not represent the consensus of the team maintaining that project, then the next point of escalation is to raise it to the maintainers of that project as a group through their weekly meetings or on mailing list or whatever. And if you still can't get a resolution through group consensus from the team, then the project team lead is sort of an implicit point of escalation there to make sure that some consensus on a particular topic of import is achieved by the team that they are leading. And if that's not happening for whatever reason, then the technical committee, as the body that delegates project leadership for each of those teams, is the next point of escalation, and they do have meetings as well, and respond on the mailing list and so on. So like those are currently implicit escalation path that contributors do have that they may not realize is available to them.
So one positive thing to call out as well that I've seen done in other projects is I believe Cinder and Neutron both have the Festival of Extra Small Reviews or something along those lines, where they actually in the normal cadence plan that we're going to look at all of the small patches coming from different contributors on this day and see if we can make progress on those. Those kind of review days, whether those focus on extra small reviews or whether the topic is, I think that does help find wayward changes and get attention from the maintainers to perhaps move some of those forward.
Yeah, in the past we had tooling to help support that sort of thing. The review day dashboard software, which tried to, I think Dan Prince had put it together and was the primary maintainer on it for a while. Tried to sort of match up bug reports with changes and track bug severities and provide some sort of a way for also the time that changes had been open with no review and that sort of thing to not get lost. That dashboard sort of died as people who had been maintaining it exited the project and there was no real upkeep, so we eventually tore it down. But we've got the Bitergia openstack.biterg.io website that's got our project analytics on it, and they do attempt to provide some metrics around time reviews are open without response and that sort of thing that I think would be a way that we can sort of measure the efficacy of efforts like those Festival of Extra Small Reviews and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely kind of finding ways that maybe don't involve us maintaining an entire suite of software to
The replacement for
tackle
that,
those problems.
is the fact that Garrett does have review dashboards, and if you know how to use that properly, you can configure sections in your changes to see this is something that's been open for 20 days and no one has given -1 on us, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of that is tribal knowledge.
Right. So finding some better way to expose that as an option, because again, the review day software like significantly predates when dashboards, search dashboards, were a thing in Garrett. So some of it was basically obsoleted by newer Garrett versions and by some things like Stackalytics and other stuff.
Yeah, just to Sean's point, yeah, I think it's Cinder that does these small review days. I've tried it with Neutron, and I don't know, it's been hit or miss. So we tend to use the review priority, which you can show up as a dashboard in its own. That way you can do a +1 to indicate that it's ready for review and a +2 if it's a gate fix. So as cores, that's what we've been doing. But I don't know if everyone else has the review priorities option.
So I mean, just about the review priorities. The problem with the guide labels, but we'll discuss that tomorrow at the Nova sessions as well. Maybe you could be resurrecting that process. I don't know, but the problem. I mean, that's a two face of a coin problem, because if you want to ease contributor life by reviewing their patches, you also want to ease maintainers' life by providing them context. And the problem that we are having with the labels is that those who are not exactly like giving you information about the current state of the series. Sure, of course, you are seeing, for example, the other labels, like you are seeing the CI labels. You are seeing if someone was already +2ing a patch. Yeah, sure. But for example, with a series, you are not giving an idea of the current state of the series. For example, if someone was like saying, okay, for example, I reviewed the previous revision of that series, and that's going to be like, I mean, there will be another round of patches in a couple of minutes, because I just discussed, for example, with the owner, and he told me that. You are also capturing, for example, in that specific etherpad, interest from some maintainers that we are saying, oh, look, I'm somehow, I don't like the word commit, but I will somehow shepherd or shepherd, sorry about my English. I will somehow like mentor, shepherd that series because I like it, or because I don't know. I mean, that will help my life. Or, I mean, there are multiple reasons why you like to review that specific series. So yeah, so that's why the guide labeling was some kind of need, some kind of an aid, yes, but we are missing some metadata that could be useful also for the maintainers.
We should definitely discuss that in the Nova one, because I actually think it works better than what we currently use, but we, as a maintainer group, didn't actually engage in the process. So I think it's good for every team to reflect on whether or not the processes are working for them and advertise whatever they are using. I think that's one of the commonalities here, is making sure that it's visible what we're actually using to external people who are maybe new contributors or infrequent.
All right. I see that I mean that we're slowing down on the discussion, but is any other topics that we have added over here that haven't gotten any prime time here? Slack, please.
Yeah, so if we are discussing about everything what can potentially do life of new contributors easier, I think that one thing which is kind of obvious and impossible to achieve actually, but I wanted to mention is gate stability, which in my opinion has huge impact on, like, if someone new will send patch and this patch has to be rechecked 10 times, that person will probably not came again or will don't want to continue with the patch, right? So we should, I know we do take care of it, but this should be really important to keep our gates as stable as possible to make it easier to get patches merged actually, and without many rechecks, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Kancham?
I just wanted to add, like what Slavik mentioned. So if the new contributors see they are contributing very trivial thing or initial level thing or doc level thing, we don't run all these integration jobs there, right? So we have those, the configuration in Joule YML file. But if we say gate stability, yes, we should be working on that. But if a new contributor is saying, I'm just fixing some code, but there are multiple job are testing all this stuff, can you reduce your testing or can you make it simple? I'll be very against of that. I mean, if they're changing the software, it has to be tested properly. Either a new contributor is fixing, or a 20 year of contributor experience guy is fixing that. So we should not, make our testing thing more flexible or less testable or less test coverage to anything. It should be like depend on the code change or what the change proposal it instead of who is proposing.
Yeah, there's been a number of situations where I have really felt bad for new or infrequent contributors. I find a change of theirs that has been sitting unreviewed for what feels like far too long to me, and I will suggest or even just make one small adjustment to the change, and then realize that that project has bit rotted and all of the jobs that were possibly coming back successful when they originally proposed the change are now breaking right and left. And while I was willing to go ahead and approve that change for them, now there's a pile of upfront work that needs to be done to get all of the project's jobs working again before that can happen, and adds further delays to their experience. If I had really prioritized keeping a closer eye on um, periodic job results and noticed that that project had or something underneath that project had changed to cause the jobs to start breaking, and had addressed that sooner, then maybe their change would have just merged as soon as I found the time to review it. But yeah, it's a hard problem to tackle. Probably also is a good reminder that one of the the key things that we're trying to focus on with this effort is actionable uh, recommendations. So, like, certainly there are a lot of, it would be nice if, boil the ocean kinds of solutions that are not really going to be something that we can achieve as a project, or not in a timely fashion at any rate. So it would be um, ideal to kind of prioritize the things that we think we can make a significant improvement on. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of other stuff that we can't, but um, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Yeah. Uh, Adding something again tangentially related to this thing about testing. So the gate jobs, I mean, I would presume that the project teams know what they're testing, and that that if they're breaking because of unrelated issues, they're already aware of it. And the least we could do is probably go to the contributors, the patch that is this thing, and tell them that this is an unrelated issue. This is the known bug in the gate, and sorry, the only thing we can do right now is to recheck this, because we're dealing with this bug with a different patch or something of that sort. But I think one of the concerns that somebody brought up was I was trying to fix something in a driver that's not even tested, and I don't have and I was not getting any reviews or attention from the project team because they didn't have any infrastructure to test that particular thing. But it's there in the code. But because they didn't have any way to test whether it works or not doesn't work, the project team was not willing to accept the code change at all. So this was specifically it was something to do with the Nova project, but with a particular Arcane,
It was probably VMware.
Okay.
Nova has been very lenient on actually enforcing a requirement that if it's not in CI, we remove the driver. We have not had CI for several of our Vert drivers for a number of years. When we actually started to enforce that, SAP said, hey, we're really dependent on this. We'll actually commit to setting up a CI. And to their credit, they actually have got something voting now, but we do still have a lot of drivers that we haven't deleted, even though we marked them as deprecated, that are in that situation where we just don't know if it's going to break something or not. And that's very hard because we often can't even reproduce something like VMware with DevStack ourselves, even if we wanted to go test it because of the licensing changes there. So I'm not sure how many other projects that affects, but I do know that Cinder are much more aggressive with removing entry drivers if there's some testing and that kind of thing. Nova, for better or worse, has been lenient in that if people aren't reporting bugs and it's not breaking everything else, we kind of try to keep it passing our basic test, but we don't actually necessarily know if it's fully working unless we actually have ACI frequently reporting back and saying yes.
Yeah, in this specific case, it was not VMware, though that's a great example. But this was something to do with the operator had some sort of a workflow that was not one that had been explicitly supported, and then they experienced a regression when upgrading to Caracol, a change in how libvirt was enumerating virtual GPUs, and it broke the specific workflow that they had been using. And I looked over the change. It seems like the response from the Nova side was reasonable, but maybe not communicated in a way that the proposer really understood. That they weren't just being told, sorry, but we don't support your use case, go away, was kind of how it came across to them. And they may have been a little reactionary about it, but coming up with some softer wording or being a little bit clearer in how support for specific kinds of workflows is or is not maintained by the project on upgrades, that sort of thing, might have helped ease their experience and make it a little less. I don't know that they were reacting entirely reasonably to the situation, but the response was that this made them never want to contribute anything to OpenStack ever again.
I don't know if you want to call out that one specifically, but it might be good to add to the Nova retrospective. I don't know if there's something in that particular case we could have done better, but yeah.
Yeah, probably just worth like reviewing the wording and thinking like, are there better ways to communicate? Again, I don't think that anybody like was incorrect in how they reviewed the change, but I think that it was taken more negatively by the change proposer than was probably warranted.
I know we have
Yeah,
rollbacks. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm very curious about the patch in question because specifically given you spoke about VGPUs, which is kind of a part of my life for like about 5 years. So yeah, if you can throw some details into the Nova Etherpad, I can give you the link if you want, because I'm very curious about that. And indeed, if I may have made some kind of off answer to someone, or if someone else could have made an off answer, surely we can discuss that at the PTG and see what we can do better.
Cool. Yeah, I can get you the link.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Peter.
so for one, it doesn't ring a bell for me, but I don't know if I was involved in that review or not. The other thing I just going to mention is we have in the past really rolled back some of the decisions we made. So there have been parts of our API that we didn't have strict enforcement of, and we, from a project point of view, said we don't support doing X, but because the API didn't block it, some people had started depending on it. The example of this was FQDNs and the instance name. We had never supported that officially. Some people built a workflow around it. We started blocking it, and then 2 releases later, after some other operator feedback saying, hey, we really depended on this, we provided them a way to do it. So we're not open to changing some of our decisions if we're actually told that, yes, you're doing something we didn't support, but we could reasonably support it, to actually providing a way to do that going forward.
Cool.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the other thing that the same person suggested was they could post the results of a manual test that they were able to do. And is this something that project teams are able to accept in lieu of not having entire third-party CI for that sort of thing?
In general, no, unless they have really, really extensive unit and functional tests, because the entire reason for having the CI is not show that the code is correct today. It's to keep it correct going forward. So if people are depending on it, it doesn't regress. If they have enough additional coverage, then sure. But if they just push out a patch with almost no testing except for their manual tests, that's where it comes into conflict, right?
True.
Yeah. And an organization with, in particular, the one in question in this case, a research organization with fairly small team and limited budget, not a hardware vendor who might have more of an incentive to make sure that their hardware is actually functioning with OpenStack, and so the interest in setting up some sort of entire automated third-party CI solution just to make sure that their deployment doesn't break in future OpenStack updates was not something that they really had an appetite for. But there were others in the room who were volunteering to make their in this case in particular, Chameleon Cloud, a representative from Chameleon Cloud said, yeah, we've got tons of virtual GPU infrastructure in Chameleon, and maybe we could work out some way to do upstream CI testing through our cloud on those resources. So still sorts of things worth looking into in cases where maybe it's a community effort and there's not a single vendor who really cares about this use case, but some of our users do care about it.
I think that's certainly a role that the core teams can help facilitate, is if there is a small contributor or infrequent one that's trying to advance something, and they can work with people who usually work in that area, either building out some of the other test coverage for them or working with third-party CIs that already exist to add additional coverage rather than having to stand up another one. Because I know we worked, say, for example, with Mellanox in the past around some of the SRV changes to say, hey, at the time you have an SRV CI, we have this small change. Can we add it into your existing CI rather than actually requiring the people who want to tweak this to set up their own internal CI? I don't think we do that often enough, where we go, hey, this is the testing that's already available, and try and come up with a solution that solves the community needs without putting all the burden on the person who wants to do this one tiny little thing. Though we do try.
All right. Jeremy, we're almost at the top of the hour. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or wrap it up?
Just a reminder that we've got a working group session from 17 to 1800 tomorrow. If people are interested in helping with this, I'd like to kind of start looking at how we might section up the recommendations and figure out what documents they might be best targeted at, and find some people willing to expand on them a bit to make them flow better from a prose perspective. And certainly if you are not available during that time slot but would like to help, even just replying on the mailing list thread that's linked here would be wonderful.
Awesome. Thank you. So with that, you've actually heard a lot of different places and a lot of different discussions that are happening in the rest of the week. The TC is not meeting again until Friday. So our next session is going to be on Friday at 1500 UTC. So between then, though, there is a lot of discussions that are happening elsewhere. So I hope to see you all over there, and I'll post the recordings of this on the openstack-tc YouTube channel and link you folks to it. Thank you all for attending today, and see you elsewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.